Okay, hello. My name is Alan Roach. Let me just give you a little bit of my background. I've been doing project planning, program management for the past 17 or so, 19 years now. I've worked both in software on the commercial side as well as also in aerospace. I've worked for some companies such as Xerox. I've worked for Lockheed Martin as a contractor in there, Standard Insurance, Regents Blue Cross Blue Shield. I've also done startups. I helped a doctor get funded for an electronic medical health record system that is in full production today. And on the aerospace side, Raytheon and Lockheed, I've worked with budgets well into the billions. And I've worked multiple capacities in those. So that just gives you a little idea of my past history. And I did come to the awareness that there are a lot of people that may be coming into some good fortune very shortly. And with that good fortune, they're looking to do projects, but may not have as much project management experience as one would like. And what I was hoping to do is just offer some basics to put into position a structure so that you could more easily move through doing whatever project it is that you want to do. Starting off, does anyone have any questions to begin with? Remember to unmute yourself if you do. Okay, and hello, who just joined?
Jim Martin.
He's one of my guys.
Okay, great. Welcome aboard, Jim.
Thank you.
Feel free to ask questions through the presentation. And with that, I'm going to get started because I actually have a fair amount to get through and I want to share that information with you. Hopefully, do you all have a notebook so you can take some notes?
Yes.
Okay. I also, in the chat, if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see a chat. I put some links and I'm going to be going over those links because I wanted information that was readily available over the internet so that after the class, you could continue to dig further and learn more to suit your needs. With that, I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to
show you what that tastes like when they break it up. That I think is still a little much. I don't think we should have to live with that, but it's packing good.
Somebody, hold on one second. I'm going to jump back because...
I'm not saying it's going to work, so we have to live.
There we go. Whoever it was ended up muting. Good. If you do get noisy in your area, please mute so that we can, it's respectful of everyone else in the group. So I did want to start off with, and I may have taken it down. I did. So let me get it. If you were on your computer and you just typed in definition of project project. Okay, the base information that comes up is an individual or collaborative enterprise that's carefully planned and designed to achieve a particular aim. What is missing from this definition is a project is something that has a definitive start to a definitive end. So it is temporary in nature by design. And I think this is, yes. So if one really good resource to go to is program management, the PMI, Program Management Institute, and they have a lot of information out there for doing projects. It is a good starting point, but it is by no means the breadth of project management. They will get you very much on a good track to start, but their definition is a project is temporary in that it has a defined beginning and end in time, and therefore defined scope and resource. And a project is unique in that it is not a routine operation, but a specific set of operations designed to accomplish a singular goal. So when you're starting off on a project at the very beginning, first off, is there any questions about the definition? Okay. I'm going to move on from there. When you're starting off in project management, it is project management really is the skill of answering 7 important questions. Can everyone see my screen? Anyone reply?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, good. So there are 7 key questions in project management, and there are our most basic of questions: who, what, where, when, why, how, and how much. And as you go through a product life cycle, which we'll get into in just a little bit, you answer these 7 questions at different levels. So the who is, who are the customers? What are the employees, suppliers, competitors, government? The what is your strategy, corporate, business unit, market, product. It's also, what are you building? Are you building a product? Are you building a service? What exactly is that product or service? And what are the goals that you're looking to obtain, which starts to get into the why. Where is the location of markets, facilities, distribution, outsourcing. So the geographical locations of everything you need to bring in, combine it together in the product, and then deliver out to the market at large. The when, which is the time component, is a strategic plan, annual plan, program and project management plans and schedules. So when they say program and project management, they're at a very high level on this. That falls back under doesn't fit in this category. The how is your project plan. The when is your schedule. The why, that would cover your leadership, communications, culture, change management. What need or value are you answering? That really is the question of why. Why are we doing this? And you can boil that back down to your objectives and what your requirements are. How you're going to do that, they're covering marketing, operations, Salesforce, but how is your plan? How do you take action? What is the the culture and methodology that you're going to utilize to get to your end product or goal. How much? That's your cost. What is the business case, the investment plan? What is your budget? Do we have any questions on the top level questions? Okay, and I do encourage people to ask questions if you have any. But I am starting at a basic level, and I can understand if you don't have questions quite yet. Is there any way to move this thing? There we go. Okay. Can everyone see the V-shape model? Or anyone?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. The V-shaped model is a great way to very quickly understand all the phases in doing either product or service development. So if your goal is to build a widget, build a spacecraft, or build information technology services that you're going to deliver out to people, this model is a very quick way for you to come together and understand your life cycle. By any chance, can you guys see my cursor?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So the cursor here, if we start out at the top, it says concepts of operation. Well, even before the concept of the operations, you need to know what is it that you're doing. You start right at the very beginning and say, am I building a product? Am I building a service? I might be building both. It might be an integrated solution. And what is it that I'm going to be providing that is value to a marketplace? So from there, you define your mission objectives and the overall goals that you're looking to answer. At that time, you identify what's referred to as a core team. What are the core functions that you need in order to define the objectives, create all of the scope and requirements? Scope is the what are you building. The requirements are what are the attributes that that scope has to have in order to meet the value need that you're putting forth. You also need to be able to manage staff. So if you are going to have a staff, how much is that going to cost? What skills and individuals do I need to bring in at a top level at the beginning so that they can actually build their teams within that organization? Any questions so far? Okay. I'm going to move right on down through. The next step is doing requirements and architecture. So you're going to decompose those objectives into requirements and say, I would like it to have this attribute. Trying to think, could somebody come up with, does anyone have a project that they're planning to do? And we could use that as a live example.
How about my artificial intelligence network create the Q device, which I'm trying to.
Okay, so the Q class?
Actually, the product itself, the Q144.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so what you would start off with from a requirements standpoint is technically you're building a product or device. and therefore it will have technical requirements in order for that product or device to be manufactured. There's also going to be some level of quality control to ensure that that product meets the specs far later on. And that's why we detail out exactly what those need to contain. Architecture-wise, it may not be, you're not building a large system of them, at least not right now. An architecture would be if you had many of those and you were bringing them together into a platform. So any attribute that your product is going to deliver, you need to create that as a requirement. It must do this. One thing might be portability. It needs to be a size that people can easily pick up and move around and take with them. Another thing could be that the quality of the materials or individual materials that would go into it. From there, once you have that's a hard product. Let me give a slightly different example. If you were to provide services out to a community, you would be starting with the goal to provide, say that you were looking to provide the homeless with shelter. That's your overall arching goal. Then in the requirements of that, you might say that you wanted habitation modules for those individuals to be of a specific size, to be in a certain location for availability, so on and so forth. Then what you would do after you go through all of your requirements, you get them all documented, then you can move on to the design phase. On the requirements, that requirements are extremely important. If you do not properly answer the need of the requirements to include everything at the beginning of the phase, you will have to revisit it further in the development cycle, and it will cost more money in order to fix that, because you may have to go back and change your architecture on the structure in which you're implementing it. When you have all of the requirements defined out, you have greatly increased your chance to actually deliver your product on time and on schedule, on time and schedule, as well as meeting your cost parameters. The reason for that is that you're not spending time spinning your wheels further on down, that lower levels are waiting for a decision on getting the requirements straightened out. Can everyone understand why it's so important for requirements to be done?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. I will also say 85% of all projects that fail because of poorly decomposed and defined requirements. So if you can really work through your requirements, your business use case, and your architecture, you're going to put yourself ahead of 85% of projects out there. And this is of any size, any design, and it is across all industries. Once you have those requirements defined, then you can actually have your engineers come in and start building a detailed design. Now, it may not be an engineer if it's a social project, but you are going to need specialists in order to design what it is that you're moving out into the public eye. as you have individuals create that, say for example, if we look at the product device of the queue, that would be having an actual schematic figured out of exactly how that goes together.
Can you just for visual sake, can you show the group, I mean, what the queue look like? You have one of the perfect device.
Oh, okay, yeah. So actually, I'll do it. I'll do it slightly differently. Let's get down to, so these are the queue devices that he is referring to. It's a product, and there is a full product line here that he is developing. So there's a lot of technical specs that go into the creation of this, such as the size, the materials that are involved, and there's other requirements that have to be met in order to create it. And let me try to find where I was. Okay, here I was. Once you have the actual design, I personally do not like the word down here. Implementation means that you're delivering, in my book, you're delivering it to the public at large. Implementation goes right in between these two up here. This is actually construction. So there, from the design, you would actually go into build. If it's software you're delivering, you have software engineers coding the code. If it's a product you have materials coming in, and then you have assembly in process being put together to manufacture whatever it is you're building. Are there any questions about construction? Okay. After you do, go ahead.
Alan, this could also be applied to a mortgage company, correct?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, and outside
or any other, let's say, alternative energy projects that are slated, overseas.
Okay, so let's take that for example. If you have, is it decentralized or centralized grid?
That's undefinable yet, because we do have a project in mind that's got to do with agriculture, which could mean a livestock as well as growing food stock. In the case of a livestock, for instance, chicken, you're talking about a device to purify the air into these chicken coops.
Okay.
So
each would be decentralized.
Right.
Okay. So let's use the example of decentralized. If you already had figured out what the product needs to do, you define your requirements, you have designed what that product will be, then they start doing the actual construction of that product. You end up having that air purification system that can be able to service whatever size facility they need. Once you have the actual buildup of the product or even a subcomponent, then what you would do is you would test that small subcomponent of the item that you're doing. Once you have the individual components within it working, then you integrate, that's this integration line, and you do further integrated testing. and verification that they meet these original requirements that you had laid out. Once you have it fully assembled, say for example, it might be you have a unit, but the unit also hooks up to ventilation. Then you would also run tests by putting the ventilation in place, and you verify that and validate that the air purity and quality coming out of that system meets your original requirement that you had defined. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Then you would have implementation, which is you would roll that out to, you could start with a pilot and roll it out to a small group and continue to do further testing, beta testing with that system. Once you are comfortable that it is meeting all of the original objectives, then you roll it out to the public at large, and you're now into operation and maintenance mode. Does anyone have any questions on the V-shaped model for development? And ignore the fact that it says software. It applies to products, hard products, as well as software products, as well as services and social programs. Does anyone have questions? Remember, you gotta unmute if you do. With that, I'm gonna start moving forward and break this down a little bit further so people can understand it a little bit better. And some of these might be new terminologies for you. Please stop me at any time, and I can go into far greater detail on any of these. So we started way back at the beginning saying, I have a project. Well, the first question is, what is the project? What are we actually building? And how big of that what is it? And the how big answers what is referred to as scoping. The scope is everything that you're going to need to provide to move that value into the marketplace. Now, even if it's a humanitarian project and you may not be charging anything for it, you still need to define how big is it, how much is it going to cost, because you're going to have to staff up in order to meet the needs, in order to deliver whatever it is. Does everyone get the basic concept of what scoping means? Or anybody?
Yep.
Okay.
You're going to describe your business.
Yes, you're going to describe, you're answering what? What is it that I am going to deliver, and how big is that? So it is very important to draw lines, because there's also what's called scope creep. And that's the other thing that kills projects. If you allow it to continue to expand, the cost and budget and resources and time to deliver that will continue to grow as well. So by very clearly defining the boundaries around exactly what you're delivering, you end up controlling the scope and getting the delivery out to the public with the highest quality in the shortest amount of time for the most efficient cost. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Once you have a clear definition of the scope of what you are going to do, the next step is actually, and I'm going to go a little bit down further in detail below this, you end up doing what is called rough order of magnitude, or ROM estimating. And what you do is you decompose the scope into different modules. So for example, if we go to the air purification system, well, that air purification system, you may have a module that reads what the current air quality is in it. So you need sensors in there to read what is the air quality. You may have another module which is an air scrubber, and it's scrubbing the air to get a higher purity of air into that environment. You're also going to have power distribution modules within that in order to power those other units. So as you can see, that would be taking the air purification, and now it's already decomposed into 3 different modules. Can everyone see that? Or anyone?
Yeah, no, I understand that.
Okay.
I didn't even thought about that. You're absolutely right.
From there, you define all the requirements down at the lower level that each of those modules will be answering. And you start to, let's actually, does anyone have a project that isn't a physical product? So I can show how that applies elsewhere.
What about Reiki or hypnosis?
Okay, so you're looking to provide a service. Who was that?
Victoria.
Oh, okay, Victoria, thank you. So, okay, let's say we are providing Reiki. Well, first off, geographical location would be some of the different modules you would have. You may divide those up into regions. Are you doing it in Florida? Are you doing it in California? Is it going to be in all of the United States? Is it going to also be in Peru? So one of your modules would be a geographical breakdown to understand how you're going to deliver that value out to the community. And some of the requirements you may have is any city of a certain size, we're going to put a center in within these geographical areas. Also, there would be, how are we going to get those practitioners? You're going to have service providers or care providers that deliver the Reiki healing out to those people. You're also going to need to have management staff in order to do scheduling and booking and putting all of that together into those groups. Does that give you some context, Victoria?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Does anyone else have a project that they would like a little help on scope decomposition?
Jim, what about the mortgage company?
Okay, perfect.
That would be an expansion of an existing company to currently include 44 states. That's in process.
Okay. Okay, so what I'm hearing is it is already existing in one state. Is that correct?
Already existing in 4 states and proceeding to balance out to a total of 45 states. The only states that are not included are ones that are too difficult to get licensing in.
Okay, so you have a legal component, you have a legal module in there, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Which part of the value of that is you are meeting the compliance that those legal requirements are. Now, that value might not necessarily be visible to the customer. However, it is a value add, because if you offered it and then all of a sudden you were non-compliant, you'd have to take those services away from people. You could have it broken down into regions, or you could break it down into a state level, but you do have the geographical rollout that you would be defining the phased implementation on how you're going to roll that out to these different areas. So part of that project would be breaking down, how do we roll this out from an implementation plan to the other areas. You already have an existing platform that has been developed. The questions then there become, what additional things do we need to add into our current platform in order to meet compliance, which one of them's legal. Another one would be marketing. How do we get the word out to those individuals within that area? Are we gonna penetrate the market via the internet? Are we gonna do print? Are we gonna do radio? Are we gonna do TV commercials? All different effective avenues. Everyone's favorite is word of mouth, but that's the hardest one to rely on. Also, social media platforms. So your marketing is one module, and then you may have subdivisions under that marketing that decompose even further into those different areas. And the value by breaking those down individually is then you can develop metrics that as you put money into each of those areas, you can identify how much business that is bringing back to you, so then you can identify what your return on investment is within each of those subcomponents. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense.
And in marketing, we need to take into account the different generations we're marketing to. Makes a difference.
Excellent point, Victoria. So you could even decompose it further and say what our market could be bought from anyone age 18 to 100. But then you can break that down into 18 to 30, and then 30 to 40, 40 to 50. And then within there, you identify what your ideal target market is. And you can allocate different marketing based upon that to increase your target market. And by tightening the boundaries around the scope, you control it better. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you. And I like to get that confirmation back that I know the information is being taken. You also have a process when you go through, you're actually developing mortgages. Say that your marketing campaign is being effective. Well, you need staff in order to receive those orders. So originally they start off in proposal state. And what I'm starting to do right now, so everyone else can follow, is I'm getting into build a business case. The first question is feasibility. Do people need mortgages? Absolutely.
Yes.
We already know that, but you probably want to go further to identify what is feasible. Who actually has the money to actually buy those mortgages? Maybe the 18 to 30-year-olds don't have enough money to buy a home at this point in time. And it's really those that are 40 to 50 that have put money away have the availability to buy the mortgages. And you might say, well, our object is to make money, and therefore we're going to focus a little more on that target. It could be totally different. It could be we have been blessed with a lot of money, and we already know that segment can get mortgages. And therefore, we're looking to subsidize, and we want the 18 to 30-year-olds, and we want anyone over 70 years old to be able to have their own place. So it all depends on what your original goal is, and then you would be targeting and using methods that are germane to those different target groups. But from a business use case, you're still going to have a prospect. The prospect is going to ask for a mortgage. Now, if you're subsidizing it, you say, what do they qualify for the subsidy? And you identify the business rules within this business use case as to what you're going to help support them with so that they can afford to buy that home. And you lay out each step on a piece of paper. Or you could, there are computer programs now that do an excellent job of laying out every step. And within those steps, when you put it down on paper, here's the value of it. And this is so uber important. I cannot state it enough. By putting them down on the piece of paper, then you can look at each individual step and you can say to yourself, does this step provide value? And providing value might be meeting compliance. So we need to report to government agencies. We need to do any other taxation compliance. Or it could also be providing direct value to the end customer. This ends up getting the legal documentation together for the customer to be able to own this home.
What about HUD? For, like the young people or the older people, doesn't HUD
so you
financing?
Right, so that's government subsidy, and you absolutely could add a module in there and build out the use case for obtaining that and interject it into the business use case. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Any other questions? Okay. Then you step down to the development state. In the case of the product, you're actually getting suppliers to send you materials and you're putting it together. Whatever that may be, if it's a spacecraft, if it's the Q device, if you're building widgets, if you're selling t-shirts or whatever. You're getting materials together, you have a staff and a facility there in order to put that together. From the mortgage standpoint, the development is the actual product is going to be the different types of mortgages that you have available to the market. One of the things is you have different risk factors assigned with different credit approval ratings. So you may have a line for what are called subsidy or subprime mortgage lending. You have your prime mortgage lending, and you may have full grant subsidy available. How am I doing so far there, Morgan?
Good. Yeah, this is Joe Martin. That's good.
So putting those together, then you develop your product and you create all of the documentation and the boundaries that you're covering within those. Once you have all of that documentation together, you have it nice and clean and able to be presented, you're going to go back in your test and validation. Well, you really don't test a mortgage, you validate it. Is that meeting all of the compliance? If we were to put that through, would we actually end up with that person getting their home? So you go through different testing to say, now we're able to roll it out. And usually you do a pilot and you start getting some samples through to say, yes, we were able to do this effectively. And you may have to tweak your process a little bit to make it run a little smoother, to make it faster, to get the people to where they want to be. You may also have a whole internet portion of that you develop software in order to deliver this out there. Then you reach the point which is launch, which this is implementation. This is also termed go live. You're pushing the button and you're going to open it up to a large body of people. And it's always an exciting point. Odds are you never get it fully perfect and there's burn-in or working the kinks out that you need to do in this phase. So you do need to staff up at this point in time or have your staff available at that point in time to really work through and ensure a successful launch into the public. Does anyone have questions? Okay, I'm going to go back through the product life cycle a little bit differently. And I have added into the chat, I've added a bunch of links. If you're able to go and pull those up, and they're very simple searches that I did, but it's from knowing what to search for. And at the end of the class, I'll go back and give you those searches so that you're able to pull this information up for yourself and continue driving down and learning about what you're looking for. Does that sound like a good plan to everyone?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I'm trying to, where is the gated process? Phase gated, I'm on it right now. I'm gonna scroll up a little bit, and this is right off of Wikipedia. Tons of information right there in Wikipedia to help get you going. Let me, the one thing when you have, let me talk further to phase gated process, okay? Yeah, it says phases in detail. It's discovery. That discovery or idea. First you have an idea, and then what you're trying to do is find out about it. In discovery, what you want to do is you want to identify how feasible is it, and you have to identify what other companies are out there delivering this in the marketplace. And then ask, what is it that I can do better? What is it that I can give to the people that will be of value? So a lot of people have heard the old adage, companies are in business to make money. Who here has heard that quote before?
Yeah.
And you probably heard it that way, right?
Yes.
Let's go into the new paradigm, into the new energy, and complete the thought. Companies are in business to make money by providing value. Hopefully that resonates with everyone on a far deeper level than the previous. So the real question is, what is your value production? What value, what is the gift that you are giving to others by them utilizing your product or service? And by shifting and focusing from that perspective ongoing, it is going to make you far more successful in your entire product life cycle. We discover, we then move on to the scoping and scope decomposition. We talked about that at length, at least at the high level. Then you build out your business plan, your business use cases, and how you're going to deliver that out to all of the rest of the project that you're carrying on. As we mentioned before, you do your development, you test and verify, and you make certain that that is meeting all of those requirements that you defined up here in 4.3. So the business case is the requirements in this case. And I hope that the terminology is not getting in your way. But business cases are requirements. After it's tested and verified, then you go into your launch and take it out to the world. Now, along with all of this phasing, up here at the beginning in discovery, we identified key roles that we're going to need, such as we may need a CEO, Chief Executive Officer, we may need a Chief Technical Officer, we may need an architect, we need different leads, we may need legal, but you need to identify all of those core team. Then in the scoping phase, as you're breaking it down, you're identifying the rest of the staff that you're going to need.
He's outside. Yeah, he's outside. Sorry.
Okay. Then staffing later on, as you're going through the gates, later on you're going to need testers, but you bring testers in after you've started your requirements, because then they start taking those requirements and they start defining how do we verify that requirement. It must meet pass-fail criteria that we can verify the quality of the product that we're putting forth. Later on, they'll actually execute testing to verify that you're meeting those needs. And they're going to conduct and run testing and verification. Then you're also going to need to gear up your marketing. And in these later phases is where that marketing would start getting put out so that you could get a test group in, and then later for the full-on launch. Up in the scoping phase, you're estimating all of that. So you have a good concept of what your total cost is going to be for the entire program. And you devise it that you put monies into different buckets or control accounts or control points so that you can measure how efficiently you're using that money throughout the entire all of the phases of your project. You also set aside a project management reserve so that if certain areas are getting in trouble, you can allocate more funds and ensure the successful quality delivery of each of those steps. And my idea here is to give you high-level concept just to give you structure so you can move forward. Does anyone have any questions?
I think when you're hiring these different people for your project, and especially in the marketing section, that you really have to take a look at their personality of who is going to be marketing your product if they're having to go out into the public to do that. You know, that they're outgoing and are able to speak to people and get to know them and listen to people. I know of a business right here in the neighborhood. This poor guy, he started a beer brewery business, and came from out of the country. And he's from out of the country, and his beer brewer master is from California, and some more people are not from Texas. So I see that as a problem right away. And then the person that he chose to market for him came to him working at HEB in the wine department. And here he is, you know, with the beer, and she's kind of
weird stuff.
spoken.
Yeah, it was.
So it doesn't look like it's working out for him too well right now.
Right. Well, no, he doesn't remember it after it's done. He doesn't remember it at all.
Sorry, there's a lot of noise in the background.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could you complete that thought?
Well, I see, and the lady had hired to manage the office. She did have experience. She was the only one that was experienced. She was from another state, but she had been working for like Sears here, and she would do the employees' paychecks, and she knew about all the safety regulations that you would have to have in place. But she left his job site last fall and has gone on to work somewhere else. So he's lost like top person in the office there that does the paychecks and all of that.
Well, in any business environment, you have to have qualified personnel in order to implement it properly.
And I see him not having, you know, the room master is qualified, and this person in the office management was qualified. She's not there anymore. But the salesperson, I don't think, is qualified to go out and do his business.
So one of the biggest things in going through a project is absolutely going to be hiring staff.
Yes.
There's another component here that I had not brought up, which is culture. And you need to figure out exactly what it is for a culture in an environment that you want to set up internally, and you actually need to cultivate and manage that state environment of the culture. When you're bringing other people in to whatever your project is, you want to ensure that they are a good fit. Absolutely. You want to ensure that they are going to match the culture in which you're delivering. Or that culture can get away from you and can be skewed. So I've absolutely agree with you, Victoria. It is very important to get the right individuals that will integrate with everyone else into that culture. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Did anyone else have any questions? Can I get your feedback, please? Was this informative? Was it too beginner? Was it too advanced?
It's okay.
It was very informative. It was not beginner level.
What's that?
It was informative. Information was informative, but it was not beginner level.
Okay. Was it too advanced?
No.
Okay. Was it manageable for you to feel like, okay, I feel like I have some level of a structure and I might be able to take this template and apply it in different manners to the projects that I'm looking to develop?
I think it was understandable enough that could be done. You develop a template in your mind and or on paper, and you can then overlay it onto the business that you're working on.
Okay, good. Anyone else?
I can see it working in you know, some of the projects that I want to have. Still in my service business, I don't know. I've had a real struggle out here because I chose to stay close to home instead of going like into San Antonio, which is an hour away, because it is building up in this area, about 40 minutes from my house here. And so I thought, well, good, you know, I don't see any other business. I'm the only one in this type of business, this type of service business. And I knew not to do, you know, send out cards or anything like that, because I know what I do with my envelope of cards that I receive in the mail. So I went to the website and used, you know, special words that would catch people's eyes looking for this type of service. And I've joined the Chamber of Commerce, became a member, and I'm a little disappointed that they're not doing more to promote more of the businesses in this area. Mm-hmm. So as far as marketing, I put out flyers, and so I still have to look at marketing.
Okay, and social media is the wave of the future. So utilizing, gaining a presence in different social media platforms is definitely a good area to investigate. And then what you would also do is start looking at what's referred to as SEO and SEM, which is search engine operations, and the way things are tagged. You were alluding to that, but those are the specific terms that are used in the industry.
What is that? SEO and SEM?
M. As in Mary.
M. Okay.
So that and there are different companies that actually do provide optimizing that. Now, before you go getting involved in those organizations, you better really have your culture down and your business use cases down, because they're gonna say, likely, this is how much we cost for our time. And if they have to wait on you to figure out those requirements, you're just going to be burning through money. So figure out what the message is that you really want to deliver, who that target audience is, and what it is that all of those requirements. So when you do go talk to them, you can be very organized and they can move right through it and say, oh, definitely. We can put that together for you quickly because you have it all laid out already. And they don't have to spend their time trying to figure out what that message is. You've got it laid out already. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And this goes back to what I said very early on. The better you define the scope, the requirements, and everything else early on, the less it's going to cost you. Good question. Anyone else? Pastor Walker, do you have anything? You have to unmute first. Pastor Walker, I'll give you another chance here. Go ahead and jump in. I'm going to move on. Andy, do you have any feedback or any questions?
No, I think it's very informative, straightforward. I'm looking forward to those links at the end of your lecture here.
Oh, so if you go to the bottom in chat, there should be a chat button. Go ahead and click on that, and there's a bunch of links there. Oh, thank you. But I do want to say how I searched on those, so I'll get to that right now. So you guys can take down the notes. The way that I pulled up these different, the different information, you want 7 key questions of project management. You also, V-shaped development. V-shaped development. There is one other, I'm going to jump back real quick to the screen share here. Another one is rational unified process. This is a very good, these are the phases right here: inception, elaboration. Inception is the idea in defining what it is. Elaboration is decomposition of scope, do your estimation, define your high level architecture. Detailed design is in construction phase, and that's where you build it out and you verify. Transition phase, you do the high level system and then you roll it out to your customer. So that's rational unified process. I'm going to add that to the links. That's another really good resource. But if you search it, you should be able to get that. I'm going to add that one into these links here now. The other one was V-shaped model. And I'm going to jump back over to make certain. No, I don't want that. Oh, can't minimize meeting. Okay, I'll go to screen share. There we go. And We had those. That's the V shape, the 7 questions. This is another one that goes a little bit deeper into the 7 questions, an article. It's in the links there. This is what is project management? And actually, I'm going to give you another one, which is Program Management Institute or project. This is the actual institute right here, but I'm gonna go to the general. So it's www.pmi.org, and I'll also add that one in there. That is an excellent resource. Oops. How do I? There we go. And chat. Okay, and let me make certain that I got all the other ones. I'm gonna have to pull that down to be able to get to these tabs. Yep, I believe in rational unified process. So that's all of the links are in there now. Very good question, and thank you for reminding me. Does anyone else have a question or feedback? Now, also, I will make it available to you if you have specific questions that pertain to whatever project you're working on. Please feel free to get a hold of me. Does everyone have my number in my email?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they all should, Alan.
Okay, great. Okay, so with that, I'm going to conclude the class. And thank you very much for your attendance. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you for the information.
Everyone have a good day.
Alan, excuse me, are we having, is this the only class that's it? Or are we having a follow-up with this, a much more advanced, or I don't know what if it's appropriate for me.
How about I work with people individually? Part of it's going to be a question. I may not have as much time available during the weekdays going forward, but I'm going to have to wait and see on that with certain things that happen. But I may be going back in to work on a proposal for Lockheed. Come on.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. Understood. Okay.
Okay.
No, so it's, if somebody needs to get a hold of you, they just can call you or schedule an appointment to go over any projects that they have.
Yes, please do. And
Perfect.
I can also help right down to the level of detailed process engineering. Okay?
Great.
Okay,
Thanks, everybody.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
Take care. Bye-bye.